Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Falcon Focus Podcast as we recap the week that was and preview the week that will be in Falcon Athletics. My name is Matt Menzl. As we do every Tuesday, we come to you live from the CAF on Facebook Live from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Archived on cuwfalcons.com. You can download the audio through Podbean and listen through iTunes. And we'll be joined by a couple of guests as we recap the fall sports season that quickly is winding down. Football with one game left, cross country with an event left as well. But we'll be joined by a couple of seniors from the Triathlon team back for their third year of existence. And we'll be joined by seniors Hannah Barrow along with Alicia Hook. And we'll be joined by the CUW Director of Athletic Communications, Steven Schauer, as we do recap the fall season, but also look ahead to the winter. Let's begin by taking a look at the week that was in Falcon Athletics, a week that for the women's soccer team last Tuesday would see them in the NAC tournament semifinal, end up being a 4-1 loss at Dominican, jumping in front 1-0 via a goal that was scored by Allison McElwee. Nicole Shashelsik had the assist before Dominican with a strong second half showing they would score 4 times in the final 45 minutes. It's the second consecutive year the Falcons fell by 3 in a NAC tournament semifinal, that against Dominican. Dominican would go on and beat Illinois Tech, that in the tournament championship, after MSUE was forced to forfeit a couple of tournament victories. In all, the women's soccer team finishing with 11 victories and 10 defeats. Shannon Carroll named a first-team all-conference selection. Ashley Johnson, Alexandra Tomic, both second-team all-conference, and then Nicole Shashelsik and Josie Dombrowski, both named all-conference honorable mention. In men's soccer on Wednesday, they lost for a second consecutive year in a NAC tournament semifinal against MSOE, only this time in Milwaukee. It ended up being a 2-1 final against the Raiders. Down 2-0, got a goal in the 34th minute from Zach Jaritza. Shots were in favor of the Falcons, 20-8, but again, would suffer defeat. Dominican would go on and beat MSOE in the final for a second consecutive year. For the men's soccer team, they finished with 11 victories, 7 defeats, and 1 tie. And as far as the all-conference accolades go, Gavin Flatico and Dago Diaz each named first-team all-conference, and then Zach Jaritza, a second-team all-conference selection. Nate Yeager and Justin Totsky, both honorable mention. In men's basketball, they played an exhibition game on Wednesday. That was at UW Milwaukee, in which they lost 82-71 against the Milwaukee Panthers, despite being up by 1 at the break. Certainly competed well against the Panthers, with Jordan Johnson at 20 points. Jake Church, one of the veterans, at 17 points. The men's basketball team now prepares for its season opener, which takes place on November the 16th at UW Platteville. In volleyball on Thursday, in the NAC tournament semifinal, they hosted and defeated Dominican 3-0, 25-23, 25-18, and 25-17. Amanda Schultz coming through with a total of 10 kills. Haley Cito had a total of 12 assists. Mackenzie Walkenfuss had 14 assists and 13 digs. Ariana Richmond had 14 digs, and then Madeline Alton added 17 digs in that victory. Then set up the tournament championship matchup on Saturday for a third consecutive year, taking on Aurora. Only this the first time the matchup taking place in Illinois, and the first time that Aurora was able to come out on top. Heck of a matchup that would see the Falcons jump in front 2-0, as they were able to win the first 2 sets, 25-22 and 25-18, but then suffering a devastating blow with losses in sets 3, 4, and 5, losing 25-19, 25-21, and the decisive fifth set, 15-8. The volleyball team in that matchup would see Madeline Alton come through with a double-double. She had 15 kills and 23 digs. Megan Mayer had 14 kills, 11 digs. Also Amanda Schultz with 11 kills, and then Mackenzie Walkenfuss, a total of 30 assists and 16 digs. So the volleyball team finished with 19 victories and 10 defeats. Megan Mayer and Amanda Schultz each named first-team all-conference, and then Kelsey Cleveland, known for her blocking ability, was named second-team all-conference. In field hockey on Friday, they were, for the first time in their program's 3-year existence, part of a conference tournament in the South Athletic Association. They would beat Hendricks by a 2-1 score in that quarterfinal, down 1-0. They had bounced back with goals from Sam Dunn and Megan McPike. Advanced to the semifinals on Saturday, lost to Center by a 5-0 score. As the program finishing with a program best 7 wins, they went 7-8. Sam Dunn and Brianna Bueller each named to the SAA All-Tournament team. In men's ice hockey on Friday was a 3-2 overtime loss against the number 1 team in the nation at St. Norbert. St. Norbert was able to score the game-winning goal that came with 39 seconds left in overtime, as the Falcons got a couple of goals from Nick Guerra, one of which on the power play. Then on Saturday, it was a 1-1 tie in overtime against Finlandia. Down 1-0, got a power play goal that in the third period from Jim Pearson. Shots were in favor of the Falcons at 52-33. They now sit with 0 victories, 3 defeats, and 1 tie. In ACHA men's ice hockey, Friday was an 8-1 victory against Illinois State. Saturday was a 4-3 loss in overtime against Illinois State. The club team now sits with 5 victories, 9 defeats. In women's ice hockey on Saturday, they were down at Lake Forest, suffered a 4-2 loss to the Foresters. Got a goal from Emily Godwin, also Maddie Millar able to score in that loss. And then on Sunday, lost 3-1 at Lake Forest, allowing 3 second-period goals. Natasha Wanless able to score the lone Falcon goal. It came on the power play. So the women's ice hockey team with a couple of losses this past weekend. In football on Saturday, it was a 24-0 loss against Rockford. Only 185 offensive yards in the defeat, allowing a total of 359. So the football team now sits with 4 victories and a couple of defeats in conference play, with 1 game left, currently tied for second with Aurora and Lakeland. Eureka still in the driver's seat, despite the fact they suffered their first loss of the season on Saturday when they lost in a shootout against Lakeland, 56-55. In wrestling, they began their season. The wrestling team was at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point Open, and Merrick O'Donnell at 184 pounds, he took 4th place. Also, Eric Martinson in the 165-pound class, he finished in 6th place. And finally, in women's triathlon, on Sunday, they were in Arizona, closed out their season at the USA Triathlon Collegiate National Championships. That was won by Arizona State, that for a second consecutive year. In Division III, the title won by North Central. You can find all of those results individually for the Falcons at cuwfalcons.com. Now, when we come back here on the Falcon Focus Podcast, we turn our attention to triathlon and recap season number 3. Stay tuned to tune into the Falcon Focus Podcast.
When did our measurement of success in life become so common? Because as unpopular as it might sound, God never intended for any of us to live a comfortable life. He intended for each of us to live each day with a higher purpose, to go outside our comfort zones and use our gifts and talents in the service of others. That's why He created each one of us uniquely, remarkably, to stand apart from the crowd, to live a life that's actually uncommon. Maybe that's why at Concordia University, our students have never been satisfied with simply fitting in and doing great things, but instead becoming great people. And why our education focuses on not only developing what you know,
Welcome back to the Falcon Focus Podcast. Our first guest from Triathlon. They just wrapped up their 3rd season here on the Concordia campus. Hannah Barrow, along with Alicia Hook, a couple of seniors from the squad, kind enough to join us. And let's begin by just, for those that aren't familiar, what is triathlon?
Triathlon is made up of 3 disciplines. You swim, bike, and then you run. We do sprint, draft legal, so we swim 750 meters, bike a 20K, and then finish up with a 5K run.
So how do you go about, I guess, preparing for each event?
Well, we have practice twice a day.
Twice a day?
Yeah, so we swim in the morning. It depends on the time. Usually we get up, at the end of the season we're doing 5:15 swim practices, and then the beginning was 6 a.m. So 6 to 7, yeah. So we'd swim, and then later in the day we either have a bike ride or we would run.
When you look at your schedule, typically there's a couple of weeks off in between events. Is that a necessity? I mean, just to, when you look at the physical toll it takes, do you guys need maybe a couple of weeks to kind of come back down to earth a little bit and then prepare for the next event?
Those are usually, in between our races, those are usually our most intense weeks. Those are usually our build, and then usually just a week to taper. So in between our weeks, say post-race, we have a few days off, but then that's right when it gets back into the build, the highest intensity. And then just pre-race is when we're tapering a little bit. So in between our races is when we're getting in the biggest, most intense training to kind of get us ready for each race.
It was neat because Fox 6 did a story on the team a few weeks back. You probably found it on their website archived. And one of the things they kind of showed folks is kind of behind the scenes. You guys have your own room. You have your own room that's got bikes and whatnot. Can you kind of explain the setup and what you guys do to maybe outside just swimming in the morning to get yourself conditioned for these events?
We have kickers in our room, so they're like bikes that we mount them on, and then they connect to our phones, and then they have like a workout that they incorporate, and they have resistance on them. So like if you're going up a hill, it'll like pretend you're going up a hill on the bike.
Okay.
Anything else? I think that's about it, right?
Yeah, that's what we do. I mean, besides our one long ride outside, we're doing all of our biking indoors on the resistance-based bikes.
Yeah.
So how often do you guys spend time as a team in those rooms, in that room?
Oh, I'd say like good 4 days out of the week, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're always
So-
in there goofing around.
So I'm guessing it's a very close-knit group because you guys are very confined in that space. But Alicia, I want to ask you too, you look at this sport and looking at your bio, in high school you were involved in dance and softball, so how did you get involved in triathlon?
So I was a dancer and a softball player in high school, but I'd always ran. I'd done long distance running, and I'd always biked. My family was big into biking.
Okay.
And then my sister actually did her first Ironman, and if you've ever been to the Madison Ironman course, you see those people crossing the finish line, you're like, I want to do that. And so I saw Concordia was starting their first team, and it just gave me the itch to do it, and so I got involved in training for it, and that's how I ended up here.
Now, when you got involved, did you know what you were signing up for exactly, or was it kind of a learn as you go?
There's definitely a difference between age group racing and draft legal racing, whereas draft legal, most races are set up in like 4 different loops, and so you can get lapped out by the biking. There's a major difference in like intensity between those types of racing and age group racing, so it was definitely a little bit of a shock between the two, yeah.
Well, and Hannah, your background, cross-country, track, and field, I mean, no stranger to distance running. Was this, an easy decision to not say, hey, I want to, be on the triathlon team, or was it a little bit trickier than that when it comes to transitioning from those sports to this?
Yeah, I had a hard time transitioning, but I enjoyed the team, and I kind of wanted to like switch it up, I guess, because I've been running for so long. I was, my body after a while, you can't run that far anymore. So I was like, well, you know what, let's try triathlon, because the swimming and the biking is good for your joints. So yeah, I guess it was kind of a hard transition, but I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. So,
Alicia, you were part of the first team back in 2016. First of all, is that special to you to know that you've been part of the first 3 years of this program's existence? And then, I guess, what do you remember from that first year?
It was definitely like a learning curve, kind of a growing experience, seeing it go from year 1 now to where we've grown, just seeing that improvement from year 1 to year 3 now, going to nationals and seeing, the mark we've made there is pretty awesome. To know that I was a part of that from year 1 it's been great.
And Hannah, your first event was on September 3rd at North Central. How did you feel things went for that first event? I mean, being that you were new to the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I've done like maybe 2-3 triathlons before that, and they
Okay.
were like at Elkhart Lake in down by Sheboygan. But I was kind of scary because it's lap, and like we're saying, you get lapped out. Like I was a little like, oh boy, I hope I don't get lapped out. But it was fine. It was fine. But the swim was cool because at least you could get out of the water, and like you had to run a couple meters and you went back in the water. So that was okay. The swimming for me is a little scary, but I got through it. So.
And you guys have had 3 coaches in 3 years. Is that a tough transition to maybe get used from one coaching style to the next, or is it I guess, is it easier to transition in a sport like this, or?
It definitely has been difficult going from coach to coach each year, but I think if anything, it's made me a better athlete each year. I mean, each year, going from a different coach year 1 to year 2, and now we actually have a head coach and an assistant coach this year. I think I've made just big improvements each year, having new coaches come in, and every practice they can see something different, and my swim technique or how I'm biking or how I'm running, just having new insight every year. It's actually kind of made a difference, and I've liked it, but it was kind of different going from a new coach every year.
I could see it.
Yeah.
Jeff Shawhan is the coach right now. Tell us about Jeff. What kind of a coach is he?
Yeah, Jeff.
Aggressive, hands-on?
Yeah, I think he's pretty rigorous. He's a good coach. I think he really cares about us, and he really takes time for each person, talks to everybody about how their training's going, and and we do like an FTP test on the kickers, so each of us have our own like pace that we're going at, so that really helps students and everyone doing the same thing. Everyone's fitness level is different. Like Alicia's faster on the bike than I am, but I mean I'm faster on the run, so it just depends. But yeah, he's a good coach. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
So overall, how did your first year go?
9, it was good. It was good. My swimming improved a lot, and my biking improved, and then my running, I think, improved as well, too. We didn't run as far, so that was interesting to only go up to about 5 or 6 miles instead of running 10 or 13 with Russ. So, yeah, it was interesting.
Your 3 years, were you pleased with the progress you made each year?
Yeah, I definitely have improved from year 1 to year 3, and Jeff this year has been a phenomenal coach, and just from the beginning of this season to the end of this season, I've seen a great amount of improvement. From race 1 to race 2 in the year, I've seen a 3-minute PR, and then from the past race to the end of the year, I've seen just PRs in each discipline and overall in the race.
For both of you, your favorite event or your favorite part of the event, because as you mentioned, each of you have your strengths and maybe your weaknesses, so what's your favorite part of each triathlon event?
Mine's definitely the biking. I can just get out there and pound it out. I love the bike, so.
I would be running. Yeah, it's just easy. I don't know. Yeah.
Who are some of the other athletes on your team that have had great seasons, or just obviously I'm sure it's for the whole team. It's fun to be around, but
yeah.
Who are some of the other athletes that maybe you point to and go, wow, they've really improved as the season's gone along?
I would say Franny Jensen. She really improved on her swimming. Like she was swimming. She swam like almost 14 minutes this weekend. Mm-hmm. I mean, it took me a long time to get out of the water, but she's like, yeah. And she did soccer, volleyball in high school. Yeah. So she really pounded it out. Yeah, she did a good job.
Is that normal for athletes, I guess, in a sport like this to come from such different backgrounds versus being in track and cross country, maybe having, like in your case, dancing and softball as your background? Is that kind of normal right now because it's still a relatively new sport?
I would say so. Do you think so?
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. I feel like Franny kind of just picked it up because she thought it was cool and she thought it was awesome. So she's like, well, I'll try it. And if it didn't work out, then, you can just say, oh, I'm done with this. But, yeah, I think she really worked hard. And
I mean, I feel like having 3 different disciplines, it's definitely hard, harder to learn. But if you put your mind to it, you can do it. Yeah. So, and we have great coaches that take their time to, help us improve in each discipline. Mm-hmm. So if you are willing to learn it, you can achieve at it. So
yeah, I'd say triathlon, anybody can do it. You just have to
be dedicated and willing
to learn each part.
Let's wrap it up by asking about this past weekend, getting the opportunity to go to Arizona, which had to be a lot of fun. It was the USA Triathlon Collegiate National Championship. Tell us about the event and just, the whole experience.
It was super amazing to go. It was definitely a difference going from Wisconsin to Arizona.
It was hot. And the sun, the air wasn't that bad, but the sun was really hot. Like, when you got to the 5K, it was just down on your face. And I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta keep going. But, yeah.
Do you have a preference when it comes to weather? Do you event like this or sport like this, do you want heat? Do you want it cool? I mean, what do you guys prefer?
Well, we were in Virginia. It was like this.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit warmer, but
I'd rather have nice and overcast. It's a lot easier to keep your body temperature cooler. Yeah. Easier to take fuel. Whereas heat, I feel like there's just so much to worry about. Whereas water, dousing your body,
like Gatorade and electrolytes and stuff like that. They had no Gatorade on the course; we only had water bottles. Yep. So I feel like I could tell the difference. I was like, I need some Gatorade, but.
And the bike course was extremely technical. You had a lot of uphills, turns, straight into downhill. So it was super hard to not only bike handle but then drink at the same time. So you were trying to take in your water and your electrolytes on the bike with the heat, but also maintain being safe on the bike course, staying with bike packs, not getting crashes. Yep. I mean, there were a few crashes on the bike course that were witnessed.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Well, ladies, thanks a lot for getting up early with us and stopping by. You can check out more about their season at CWFalcons.com. And as they get ready for year number 4, congrats on the year that was.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When we come back on the Falcon Focus Podcast, we'll be joined by the CW Athletic Director of Communications, Steve Schauer. Welcome back to the Falcon Focus Podcast. Now switching gears to wrapping up the fall season and looking ahead to winter as fall is about complete with cross-country event left and football with a game left, and be joined by the Director of Athletic Communications, Steven Schauer, and volleyball. Now, this is a team that came into the year off back-to-back regular season and tournament championships. They went 19-10. They finished in second in the conference. They were runner-up in the NAC tournament. It was a team that certainly had a lot of highs, a couple of bumps along the way, but a squad that certainly found ways to compete again this fall.
Yeah, they did. They had a very good senior class this year with Schultz, Walkenfuss, and Cito kind of leading the way. And having been through the last 2 years of what they've done, not basically losing a conference match and just rolling through people, the expectations coming in this year, excuse me, were very high, and it's hard to continue that expectation and that level of play match after match after match. And they did the best they could all the way up until the end, leading 2-0 in the championship match before Aurora, with the Conference Player of the Year and Katie Vondra, just slowly kind of took over and took that match 3-2 on Saturday. But yeah, it was a really, really good year for the volleyball team.
A couple of notes: Haley Cito, 1,582 assists. That's fifth in program history. Also, a total of 93 services. That's eighth. You had Mackenzie Walkenfuss, who had 1,559 assists. That's ninth in program history. And then Amanda Schultz, 79 kills. That's ninth in program history, but also sixth in the program with a .229 hitting percentage. But, the future's still bright. You have Kelsey Klebel coming back when it comes to the block. You have Megan Mayer, Kendall Stribling. Madeline Alton really came on strong. Now, she was pretty consistent throughout the year, but she really came on strong these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Madeline, towards the end of the year, she really started to find her groove and had times playing all the way around doubles, quite a bit in the last month there. But there was a lot of times where you could see that when she was in the lineup, that spark was there and her athleticism really started to show. And I'm not going to guarantee it, but it's going to be real interesting to see what she can do from this year to next year, how she can improve and then continue that on to become a leader of this team and really the go-to offensive player.
Now, men's golf, it's kind of a unique situation because they start their NAC championship now, or a couple of weeks back, and they will now conclude it coming up in April. But right now the golf team sits in third place out of 9. They had a young team, but a lot of young talent in Dylan Carvalho, but then also you have Sam Schlosser, the reigning NAC Player of the Year, and so men's golf will find themselves in third place once April comes along.
Men's golf in the fall here, it was a very different 2 days for their tournament. I went on Sunday to take some pictures and kind of be there to support the team, but the weather just sucked. There's no other way to put it. It was like in the upper 40s. It was raining. Then at one point the wind switched off the lake and it was probably blowing 20-25. And I mean, being a golfer myself, it's something that I didn't even want to be out there in. I mean, it was not fun. So some of the scores were higher. The conditions were really difficult. And then I decided not to go on Monday, and it was almost 70 and the sun was out. So it's like I picked the wrong day, but I mean, the conditions were so different and the scoring was so much better on Monday than it was on Sunday. So it was almost whoever on Sunday could put somewhat of a decent round together had enough of a lead in the momentum going into Monday that they could hold that through. And like you said, to half the championships in the falls, that's another aspect that it makes it a difficult part is you play half the tournament in the fall and then you come back in the spring, different course, different conditions, maybe a different lineup to try to piece it all together to go ahead and try to win that. So there's a lot of factors that come into the men's golf championship.
Women's golf took fourth in the NAC championships. Men's and women's soccer both were semifinalists in the NAC tournament. How about women's tennis? 10 victories, 1 defeat. They went 9-1 in conference play, lost to Edgewood. But again, like golf, they will see their season culminate in the springtime. They will have a number 2 seed in the NAC tournament, and you have some experience there with senior Ashley Solberg, number 1 singles all 4 years, and a number of accolades that come her way in those 4 years.
Yeah, Ashley, and then Bailey Kelly is also a senior. The two of them have really guided this team this year. The roster is so young. There's so many freshmen. To try to get them to understand what it is to play collegiate tennis, how important it is to play every single swing and point. And we did a feature story on the two of them, and kind of talking to them, they made a point that there was a lot of times they didn't work on single stuff in practice. It was all doubles work because the freshmen just need to understand that and get those couple of points early in the match. And then when you get to singles, just play as hard as you can every single swing, and it'll come. But the two of them, they really worked hard this year. Second isn't first. They had a chance to four-peat, the first ever to do that. But a second seed is something still to hang your hat on.
Men's cross country taking third at the NAC championships. Women's cross country taking fourth at the NAC championships. Football, 6 victories, 3 defeats, 4-2 in conference play. Currently tied for second with Lakeland and Aurora. 1 game left. It's a battle for the Luther Cup on Saturday at 12 noon against Wisconsin Lutheran from Thomasini Stadium. Certainly football their chance a couple of weeks ago to take over first place. Lost a tough one in the last 19 seconds against Eureka. Got shut out this past week by Rockford. But, regardless of wins and losses, this team's taken some great steps. They have the senior leadership of Aaron Nixon, the quarterback. But, it's a number of freshmen and sophomores who we have seen firsthand, at least here in Mequon, grow week by week.
Yeah, exactly. And coming into the season, there was a lot of people that just generally thought they wouldn't have the wins that they have now because 95 out of 115 guys before the first game were underclassmen. And generally you just think with that inexperience that the wins just probably aren't going to come with that because you're learning, you're gaining strength, you're trying to figure out the college game. But the thing that people kind of forget is that a lot of those freshmen and sophomores, well, not the freshmen, but the sophomores, played as freshmen. They started, they had the experience in a lot of those games. So those guys really took it in the offseason and spring ball last year and over the summer to hit the weight room, to study some film. And obviously it helps to have Aaron Nixon back as your quarterback. Josh Sanders is a wide receiver. The two of them really got into offense. But, yeah, the resurgence of the football team this year really helped the athletic department as a whole, kind of push forward and keep striving to be as good as you can.
To wrap it up, I want to get your thoughts quickly on men's and women's basketball as their seasons get underway come next week. Saw the men's basketball team in exhibition play last week, and they certainly were able to hang tough with a Division I opponent in Milwaukee. And then the women's basketball team who lost their top 2 scorers, but they bring back Bailey Barker. It's a younger team on paper, but if you know anything about a Stacey Brunner-Jones coach team, it's all about defense, and they're expected to be, again, among the who's who in the conference.
Yeah, for men's basketball, you would Jers and now his brothers here, and Fratsky, Howe, Johnson, all these guys, Gussie. There's so many guys on this roster that have so much experience. I really think this is a year that if you need to win, now's the time to do it. And pick third in the conference, that's third, but it's preseason. But the exhibition you talked about in Milwaukee, they led in the first half and a little bit into the second before, just the bigger and stronger Milwaukee team kind of took over. But, yeah, I think men's basketball is going to be really good. And then the women's side, you have some returners in Barker, Litico, Chambers, amongst some of the other ones. Defense is kind of what they're always really good at it, and I don't see that's never going to change with, Stacey Brunner-Jones leading the team. But, women's basketball is going to be good this year, really locking down some opponents. It's just going to be how can they score in some transition and get some buckets there to put some points on the board and kind of run past people.
Steve, as always, thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks,
I'm
Matt.
sure we'll have you
Appreciate
back on here not too distant future. But when we come back, which will be quickly, we will preview the week that will be in Falcon Athletics, a quieter week as, again, we start making that transition into winter sports. Stay tuned. You're watching the Falcon Focus Podcast.
God never intended for us to live a comfortable life. He created us to go outside our comfort zones, to use our gifts and talents in the service of others, to live a you-first life in a me-first world. At Concordia University, it's our mission to prepare you for that path, so that you stand apart from the crowd and live a life that's actually uncommon. Concordia University. Live uncommon.
Welcome back to the Falcon Focus Podcast, wrapping up this week's edition. And again, you can hear us every Tuesday live from 9:30 to 10 a.m. on Facebook Live, where we're live here in the CAF. You can also watch the archive on cwfalcons.com. Download the audio thanks to Podbean and listen through iTunes. And again, we thank both of our guests, Hannah Barrow and Alicia Hook, the seniors from the Triathlon team, wrapping up their 3rd season of existence. And of course, we thank the Concordia Director of Athletic Communications, Steve Schauer, for helping us recap the fall sports season. It's just about complete and starting to look ahead towards some of the winter sports with basketball. And we'll talk more in depth about wrestling and hockey in the coming weeks. And for the week ahead, this week on Friday, nothing until Friday, and men's ice hockey will be in action at St. Scholastica at 7 p.m. with ACHA men's ice hockey in action at Marion at 7:30 p.m. On Saturday, it is women's and men's cross country at the NCAA Division III Midwest Regionals hosted by UW Eau Claire. The women get underway at 11 a.m. The men get underway at 12 noon. In wrestling, at the Milliken Open at 9 a.m., You have football against Wisconsin Lutheran. That's for the Luther Cup at 12 noon. If you cannot be at Thomasini Stadium, well, the game broadcast for you on the Falcon Athletic Network. Wisconsin Lutheran has 2 victories and 7 defeats, 2-4 in conference play. Wisconsin Lutheran won the Luther Cup last year, 22-19. In men's ice hockey at Northland, they dropped the puck at 4 p.m. Women's ice hockey will be at Marion. They dropped the puck at 5 p.m. And then ACHA men's ice hockey will be hosting Marion at 8:30 p.m. On Sunday, it is women's ice hockey, again at Marion at 2 o'clock. That's the week that will be. You can find recaps, stats, everything else you need for those matchups and more at CUWFalcons.com. And then finally, as Steve started to allude to, the NAC released its basketball preseason poll the other day, and the women's basketball team predicted to take second behind Wisconsin Lutheran. The women's team will start their season on November the 15th at Dominican, and then men's basketball, they're predicted third behind Aurora first, Benedictine second, and the men's basketball team will tip off their season officially on the 16th of November at UW-Platteville. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll do it again next Tuesday from 9:30 to 10. Thanks to all of our guests and for all involved. Matt Menzl saying so long, and thanks for joining us for the Falcon Focus Podcast.